Carriage Motors is located on the corner of Maple and State now, occupying part of the site of Mercy Hospital. The Dalzell livery stood on State Street at the west end of Maple, where Maple and State Street meet. The LeClaire and Eggleston store stood across Maple from Mercy Hospital. The fashion industries business was located in approximately this same location in the 1940s. This firm manufactured underwear. Here is a postcard picture of Michigan Avenue looking south from Maple Street in about 1913. Construction on the Nisbet block was begun in about 1889 by Daniel Comstock. It was built in sections. By 1906, when this picture was taken, the building was known as the Nisbet Building after William F. Nisbet. Mr. Nisbet was a newspaperman and was very active in city and state politics. Across the street from the Nisbet Building is the Fairman Block. Fairman and Newton's block was built in 1880 on the site of the old Mason House, one of the first hotels in the city. This is a picture of the Fairman block taken at a somewhat later date. Stillwell's Bazaar has expanded to include the corner of the building, the interior of the Stillwell store. There were several fires in the business district. On April 26, 1869, what was called the Great Fire destroyed every building on the west side of Michigan Avenue between Maple and Elm. This was before any of these pictures were taken. This is the interior of Osborne's candy store. Another fire in July of 1874 destroyed most of the buildings on the east side of Michigan between Maple and Elm. This is the Judson building as it appeared in 1906. The buildings in this block were mostly destroyed again by fire in 1879. The pictures we have seen are of buildings built after this last fire. This is a picture of the interior of Judson's Hardware. This photograph, taken in 1948 or 1949, shows the Big Rapids High School Marching Band parading in front of the Fairman block. You can see the Scott stores on the corner, the Fairman Drug Store, Wilson's Dress Shop, Judson's Hardware, the Pantry Cafe, and Parker Ryan's quite clearly. In 1980, the Judson and Fairman blocks looked like this. The buildings are much the same, but several of the businesses are different. The Morris and Crane store exterior doesn't look too different now than it does in this early picture. In 1905, this was a clothing store. Now, of course, it is the family room. In the 1950s, Parker Ryan's, another clothing store, was located here. After that, Vaughn's was located on this site. In this picture, we are looking north on Michigan Avenue from Elm. The first large building on the right is the Schaefer Building, on the northeast corner of Michigan at Elm. In the 1950s and 60s, the A&P food store was located here, with a bowling alley upstairs. This is a later picture of just the east side of the road, taken perhaps in the 1930s, judging by the cars. This view of the same block, taken from about the same vantage point, is also from a later period. The A&P store building was sold after this picture was taken, and the J.C. Penney Company expanded their store to the corner, as it is today. This photograph gives a good view of the Penney store, the A&P store, and the Supergiant Market across the street. This photo was probably taken in the 1940s. The angle of this picture gives us a better look at the buildings on the west side of Michigan Avenue. Notice the old-fashioned cars. These buildings, located on the northwest corner of Elm and Michigan, where the Water of Life store and part of the mini mall are now, were owned by A.R. Morehouse. He operated a grocery store in the buildings on the corner. Many years later, the site was occupied by Maney's Jewelry, then Wyckoff's Jewelry, then Malcolm's Jewelry, and now the Water of Life store. The Opera House was located across Elm Street on the southeast corner of that block. At one time, there was a Woolworth store at this location. The Colonial Theater was the forerunner of the Big Rapids Theater. The marquee of the Big Rapids Theater gives us our bearings in this picture. Of course, that marquee is no longer there, having been removed in the remodeling of the theater into a quad theater in 1989. Reed's Drugstore is no longer next to the theater. From unpaved road in the late 1880s to these views of the business district taken in January of 1990, it is apparent that although some of the buildings remain much the same, most of the businesses in them have changed continually. What was here in the past is now history, and what you see when you walk downtown now will probably have changed dramatically in 5 or 10 years. Our downtown business district will continue to change as the city grows and develops.